Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Deep Shelf from Ninth Haven Games. Deep Shelf is an engine building game of underwater exploitation, exploration, research, tableau building, and a whole bunch of other fun keywords. This is a prototype, all rules, components, all that stuff subject to change, and there'll be a link down below to the Kickstarter. You can check that out, well, down below. But what is Deep Shelf? Deep Shelf, like I said already, is a bit of an engine building game. You're going to be building out your engine slowly but surely as you play cards into your tableau, trying to sequence the right order of the cards so that you can properly build the buildings, move around the board, collect resources, upgrade the various technologies in the game to just more efficiently deal with your sub as you bring resources home, as you convert them and optimize them into better resources, as you sell them at the market, and a whole bunch of other things. The core game sequence is you're going to be playing cards into your little tableau over here. I have a lot of things going here. This is a very big table space, so we'll go ahead and show you what we got over here as far as our player boards. Then you have your individual player boards over here with the various buildings you can build, and on your turn you're going to be playing a card into your first action and your second action, and then moving a card to overworked. So you have a handful of cards over here. This one's actually not available yet until we build our special building. You're going to have a handful of 6 cards over here that are going to represent the core actions you can take. You're going to play one into the first action spot, which will give you, surprisingly enough, your first action. You're going to play one into your second action spot, which will give you your second action, and we'll go through what these actions do. And then at the end of the turn, this one's going to move to overworked, the first one's going to come back, and there's a timing aspect there because some cards will give you bonuses if it's played as your second action, which gives you an incentive to play as your second action, but also then it'll go into overworked where it won't come back till next turn. So there's both the reason to and not to play things as your second action in the game. Past that, what you're going to be doing over here is you're playing these cards, you're trying to build everything up, and you're going to continue the sequence in order to get as many points as possible until endgame, which is triggered by one of 2 situations. Either enough resources or events, enough resources have been depleted, enough things have happened that eventually the exploitation track hits the player count total, which will trigger endgame. Alternatively, when players have markers in the endgame of this VP research track over here, when all players have a marker, when there's a marker from any player in the final spots over there, that'll be the other way game end is triggered. So you're going through the sequence, playing cards every turn, taking your turns, trying to gather resources, trying to build up different things. Well, let's go through the actual actions. So what can you do on your turn? There's a few things over here. The first thing you can do is you can play a move card. A move card is going to allow you to move your submarine onto the board, moving it around the board, which will give you a degree of exploration, where you'll be drawing tiles from these bags, either there's 3 sea regions. There's going to be over here, the light, the medium, and the deep sea over here, with these last 2 spots there. And depending on where you're going, you're going to be drawing tiles from these bags, placing a tile down, which will most often give you various resources, where you'll place a die into the zone to show you what resources are there and how much of that resource as you slowly tick these down as you start gathering those resources. There's going to be a few other cards as well, but you're going to be moving your submarine around the board. Additionally, you'll be able to move your crawlers. Your crawlers are these guys that don't start on the board, but as you have the opportunity to build these guys are going to be how you get to bring resources home, or one of the ways you can bring resources home, as you put resources into your crawler and slowly but surely move them back to your base in the game. Now, moving to the game does have a bit of a confusing aspect in the sense that these little tokens over here are how you move, but you move across them. This is not a road in Catan. You're not moving along these. You move across these as if they're little portals, so to speak, as far as how those move. But you can move your submarine, you move your crawler, and then you go ahead and deal unresolved with any exploration events. That's going to be the first card. That's going to be how the map slowly evolves. That's going to be how you slowly make your way into the deeper regions of the map. That's going to be your move action. From there, we have our extract action. You're going to pay your upkeep cost. Now, your upkeep cost is tracked on the lower track over here, and as you build buildings, your upkeep cost is going to get progressively more expensive, and you pay your upkeep cost, and then you go ahead and extract resources with your sub and with each extractor. You see, you have a bunch of buildings over here, and over here we have the 5 extractors over here. Your sub and your extractors are how you're going to be building, how you're going to be gathering resources, and ticking these dice down as you do so, putting the resources on the board, and then eventually, hopefully, moving them back to your base, where you can take advantage from them. We'll be seeing this player board again shortly as we go through the other buildings and things you can build. That's going to be the second action card. The third one over here, let's actually go ahead and do the buildings. We'll do the construct action. The construct action is how you go ahead and build buildings. You spend resources to construct up to 2 facilities and explore locations adjacent to your tubes. So over here, you're going to be choosing the various facilities you can place on the board. We have your labs, which will help you on the research track. They'll help you over there when you take the research track over there. We're going to have our smelters, which help you convert resources. We'll have our extractors, which help you get resources. And then you have these worker complexes, which will make your upkeep costs cheaper for the game. Additionally, each player is going to have their own asymmetric, unique building over here with their own unique aspect to them of how they operate. Each faction has a small degree of asymmetry to them. And that's going to be, you have this pay your current upkeep cost. You put the various, no, that's the, where's the card to construct. You're going to be paying your resources, constructing 2 facilities, and then you can spend ore to assemble tubes and crawlers. tubes are how you help move around the board, and crawl is how you help go ahead and bring resources back to your pool. There are potential discounts for being next to other players when you build things, so the sequencing of how you do that is important. From there, that's going to be construct action. From there, we have the process ore action. The process ore action is going to allow you to basically gain $1 and then refine ore in your surface storage, which we haven't gotten how you get that back here, but back on your player board over here, you'll have your surface storage, you have the various cargo holds for your submarine, and then your individual things, your individual extractors, your crawlers will have tokens in them as well. So you gain $1, you refine ore in your surface storage, and then for each smelter you've built, you get to refine up to 2 controlled ore that's adjacent to one of your smelters, and then it also has a second action bonus. That's going to be the primary way you get that smelt, you get all the various things you're collecting, and you upgrade and refine it so you can most efficiently take advantage of it. Then we have the science action. Science action is going to be let you discarding kelp. So this over here, these regions give you kelp, and kelp will show up on the board as well. You get the opportunity to discard kelp, then you discard refined ore from the surface storage to develop one technology. So you're going to discard the refined ore, you get to develop a technology. That's going to be this track over here, which we'll get back to shortly. And then again, there's a second action as bonus as well, and you'll be able to move up on these tracks for each lab you've built. That goes back to the lab aspect, where the more labs you've built, the more you'll be moving up this track over here, getting a variety of bonuses as you do so, as well as being an endgame trigger and having victory points. From there we have the development pool over here, which we'll slowly bring onto the camera, so you can see this over here. The development is going to be a giant track full of ways you can upgrade your subs. You can have a ton of different options over here. To begin with, even the opportunity to be able to move further, to be able to scout an additional tile, giving you a ton of different benefits that will let you get different things as far as how you can upgrade your crawler with these your submarine, where by placing the various upgrades onto these zones over here, paying the specific cost shown. So there are going to be costs there, although there also are discounts. As players are going to move up the tracks, you're going to be putting down cubes over here, which will slowly give group discounts to all the players. So they'll always have that degree of things slowly getting cheaper as you try to build out these tiles. And that's going to be a huge pool of just tons of upgrades you can place onto your submarine when you take that action. And then lastly, we have home base. Home base is a fun way to get back home quicker, because you can place your submarine at dock in order to unload all cargo into the surface storage. That'll be helpful more and more as you move further into the deep sea. When you're closer by, you can often get home pretty quickly, but as you start building out things and start getting further out, being able to jump back home to to drop things off right away, and then additionally resolve up to 2 market transactions. That's where you're going to go ahead and be able to sell things to the market at the market prices. That's the core sequence that's going on here. So let's do a quick recap. What are you doing in this game? You're trying to get as many points as possible. You're going to be doing so by trying to slowly move your submarine around the board. You're going to be exploring different zones by using the move cards. From there, you'll be trying to build various buildings, various structures onto the various zones on the board, because all these structures will help you in different ways. You'll be taking actions by paying your upkeep cost and then extracting everything from the various regions on the board in order to be able to take them back home, in order to be able to convert them as properly into the resources you need, to use those both to sell at the market or to use them for the various developments by playing the science action, which will slowly let you move up this track. And you're doing all of that in order to try to be in order to try to have the most efficient engine in the game. You'll eventually be unlocking your own unique building, which gives you an upgraded card you can play as well, so that's going to help you there as far as upgrading one of your cards. You also have scientists who you can place on these spots on the board, which will give you increased extract, smelter, or research options, making you more efficient at those things. +1 to extract, +1 to smelting, or +1 up the research track, again adding to your engine in the game. You'll be upgrading your submarine so that you can move faster, do different things as far as how you upgrade the 8 different spots on your submarine, giving you a ton of flexibilities as far as how you build out your engine, and combined with just the general sequence of cards you're playing as you go through the game. Game end will eventually be triggered when you either deplete enough things that you move up the exploitation track over here, that triggers the end game, or when all the players in the game have one of the tokens in the end spot over there, which will eventually trigger endgame. And that is basically what's happening in Deep Shelf, which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. So first of all, a disclaimer over here, I did get a teach by the designer on TTS, so while I did read through the rulebook after to be able to dive into it and teach it to my game group, it's one that I did walk in knowing a little bit more what's going on, so it's a little harder for me to comment as far as how easy the rulebook was. But it does seem pretty clear to go through as far as, again, I went through the whole thing after as well. It seems pretty clear, but I did get taught by the designer, so it's a little harder for me to comment on that. I got to play through a bunch of rounds and get that sequencing in gear before I ever touched the rulebook. As far as game length, this game can run a little long. It does depend on player count, and it does depend on your group and how AP, analysis paralysis driven you are, how much time it takes you to think through your turns, but it can run a little long. Table space is not the worst. It is a large board, and you have all these additional things going on over here, the way I have them them set up, and then each player is going to have their own boards as well. It's not the craziest, but it's certainly not a small game either. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, first of all, just the general engine building in this game. There's a ton of ways you can actually build things out. There's a ton of ways you can try to either sequence your actions, or improve your submarine, or slowly move across the board, building various buildings. There's just, everything gives you more stuff. Upgrading a sub it gives you more options as far as how you're going to combine everything. Upgrading the buildings. Do you want more smelters? Do you want more extractors? Do you want to get those the worker complexes in play so you can reduce your upkeep costs as you go through the game? There's a ton of ways you can try to choose through building out your actions. Then there's the card play as well, because it's not just about what you actually choose to build, upgrade, research, all that stuff. It's also about which tracks you try to progress as you move up the science tracks, which are going to give you more bonuses. Alternatively, what sequence of cards are you going to play every single turn? There's going to be some solid second bonus cards, second bonus actions, or second action bonuses. When you play a card to the second spot, you get additional bonuses, but then that card's locked off for next round. Everything in this game is a constant decision of what you do and in what order do you do that thing, and there's lots to think about in that. And the research track gives you a ton of just general tableau building as far as how you go through it, and then additionally on top of all of that, there's a small degree of asymmetry to the factions, giving you small degrees of why you'd want to explore one faction versus the other, or another reason to dive into it. It's just a ton of engine building and choices as far as what order you're going to do everything in as you play through the game. As far as what I don't like, the first thing is that it can take a little bit to get your engine up and running in the game. For the most part, a lot of the core sequences in the game are going to, once you find your groove in those first few turns, a lot of what you do is going to feel a little bit repetitive as you go through a sequence of card plays in order to make things happen. I wish things picked up a bit faster in the early game, because there are a lot of things happening here and there's a lot of ways things will upgrade and build out and all that, but the early game can be a bit slower or tedious to get up and running. Additionally, and more importantly, I'm not a fan of pick up and deliver as a mechanic, and that is present in this game. Now, there are things that are done here to make it less frustrating than it has been for me in other games, and this is more of a me thing. The concept pick up and deliver is the idea that you have various things, you pick them up, and then you deliver those things. In the case of Deep Shelf, the things you're picking up are the resources you're going to be generating across the course of the board. And then through your submarine and your crawlers, you're going to be bringing them back in order to convert them, smelt them, whatever, and then utilize them. And I think that, for me in general, I just don't like the mechanic of pick 'em and deliver. This game, Deep Shelf, does do some things that make it a little easier, in the sense that because you have those crawlers, as you start to build them, you get that free movement action either way. Meaning when you play a move card, you get to move your crawlers no matter what. So once you have the crawlers on the board, you can both try to slowly explore and do more things with your sub, while inherently just kind of bringing things home. So there are things that make it less frustrating than I would otherwise find it, but it's still pick up and deliver, which is a mechanic I don't love. And then lastly, I'll say that I'm not a huge fan of the visual design of the game. And I don't know how much of that is art or the combination of things. There's miniatures, there's dice, there's the wooden components, there's a whole bunch of things going on over here. I don't know how much it is of the various aspects that all tie together. All I can say is that I like the cover of the game, but the whole everything else going on here visually doesn't quite pull me in quite as much. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, it does feel very multiplayer solitaire. This is not a problem for me, I don't mind that at all, but this is a low interaction game. There's a small degree of racing. Some of the technology tiles as you go further down become less and less frequent. There's going to be a degree of, trying to take advantage of the market, so there are interactions in the game, there certainly are. But for the most part, even though there are interactions, it mostly feels like you're doing your own thing, trying to build up your own engine, trying to be as efficient as possible in what you're doing, with a small degree of trying to get there first as you move further along the board. And this might be, I have not played it at 4 players, it's worth noting that, so it might be more tight at 4 players, although the game does give you various tokens to block things off, so there is a degree of accountability for that. I just can't comment on the 4-player game, but for the most part, the exploration aspect didn't feel that tight as I played through it. It mostly came down to occasionally vying over a tile, and then the inherent fluctuations in the market. So again, there's definitely interaction, but it mostly feels multiplayer solitaire as you build up your own engine, and as you try to figure out your pathway to victory. And then lastly, I'd say that it can be easy to screw up your sequence of action cards. As you try to figure out how to play your action cards, playing 2 actions a turn, one of them always going ahead into overworked and then pulling it back next turn, it is easy, or I shouldn't say easy, it is very it's very doable to overlook the right sequence of what you need to do, not think through how to most efficiently take advantage, and it's the kind of game where it might take a game or two to be able to properly get under your belt what you need to do in terms of having the most efficient return on each card played. Some cards can be a dead turn if you don't have the right things. If you don't have your smelter back, if you don't have your various resources back home to smelt, and you play that card, and you might have to play that card just to get what you need out of it, you won't get as much done. And so there's a lot to think about as far as how to get the most out of each card, and sometimes you will have slightly dead cards or just cards that feel less satisfying to play depending on how you sequence your actions in the game. Which brings me to final thoughts on Deep Shelf, and there's both a lot of things that I like about this game while also being one that there's aspects of it that didn't pull me in quite as much. For me, the engine building is incredibly solid in the game. And again, the technologies as well. There's just tons of things to consider as far as how you're going to do what you need to do to win. And there's a lot of vying for those points and a lot of reward as far as the various things going up the track. For me, I think ultimately it is pick up and deliver to an extent, which I don't love. And again, the overall visual presentation didn't pull me in quite as much. There's a lot of things I like. And then there's a bunch of things that didn't pull me in as much as it might need to be. For me, this is a 3.5 out of 5. I like the game. I recommend the game, especially if you are a fan of pick up and deliver. I think it's worth taking a look at this one because to me a lot of the game is about that resource production, bringing it back home, and a lot of tedious work in addition to the fun engine and tableau building that goes on in the puzzle. So 3.5 out of 5, solid game. That would be Deep Shelf from Ninth Haven Games. And as far as other recommendations, first of all, if you want engine building, I always recommend Terraforming Mars, one of my favorite games of all time. And then additionally, the whole tech tree aspect to a certain degree, if you want this kind of style of game, this might seem like a weird recommendation, but if you want this kind of style of game, but with a lot more player interaction, I recommend checking out Eclipse. Now, I haven't played Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy, I've only played the original Eclipse, but to a certain extent, aspects of the game felt similar to that, just with a whole lot more going on as far as combat and rockets and lasers and armor and all kinds of other things thrown into the mix if you want to check out Eclipse. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I'll have a link to the Kickstarter down below, and as always, I hope you have a good one.